Hi everyone, I'm Jay. I'm a computer science major at Miami University and a member of the Eli Lilly Leadership Institute. And I'm joined by Thatcher. Thatcher, can you have a word of introduction?
Yeah, my name's Thatcher Lincheck. I am a mechanical engineering major at Miami University with a minor in computer science, and I'm also a member of cohort 11 of the Lilly Leadership Institute.
Thanks, Thatcher. And today we're here with Taylor for our series of professional interviews for our Embrace AI project of the Eli Lilly Leadership Institute at Miami University, Ohio. The goal of this series is to learn more and get insights about generative AI with professionals like Taylor. Taylor, thank you so much for spending your time with us for this interview. And before we begin, Taylor, can you introduce more about yourself, what your current role is, and what's your experience so far with generative AI?
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Thanks, Thatcher. Thanks for having me. So my name is Taylor White. I am an alumni of Miami University. I was part of the first cohort of the Lilly Leadership Institute. And upon graduating, I spent some time at a large healthcare software company, during which time we did some predictive analytics, both around patient search, hospital occupancy, as well as likelihood of discharge for a patient within a unit. And then my current role is chief executive of OurGov, which is a small software firm helping trade associations, nonprofits, and lobbying firms work with state governments. And we're doing quite a bit with some both generative AI and some other models, some other language processing models there. So that's my background.
Cool. Okay. So for the first question, what are some changes that you noticed so far, for example, in your business, the people around you, the tech industry, since ChatGPT came out and caused like a generative AI boom?
Oh, that's a good question. There have been a lot of changes. So you can look at Google results of generative AI or language transformers, and that it's been an absolute explosion in terms of the number of people that are talking about it. You pretty much see it across like any industry today. Just probably about 8 months ago, when I was working with a healthcare scheduling company out of New York City, one of the things that we were doing is we were putting up well-authored physician profiles to say, this physician works in the space of diabetes as part of an endocrinology specialty. And we actually went out and we paid people to actually author these descriptions of each of these physicians. And, had we been doing that project today, 100% we would have passed that through a ChatGPT engine. So, even in the last 6 months, it's dramatically changing how folks are working with AI, generating content. And I think it's really been a democratizing tool. So I think 6 months ago you might have seen a lot more people are intimidated by AI, and I think with ChatGPT and the user interface, your everyday layperson has felt more comfortable and at least gotten to experience what it's actually doing.
Yeah, that's really cool. So going a bit more into like the emerging technologies and what it's like doing to transform society. So in the past, each generation has kind of witnessed these like new technologies, such as like social media, like iPads, iPhones, and now like kind of generative AI. So while fostering connectivity, this has also brought up some harms like increased screen time, mental health issues. How do you envision younger generations, especially students, benefiting from the wide adoption of generative AI, and what potential drawbacks are there?
Yeah. So, I think like with all things similar to what you kind of just mentioned, Thatcher, there's always been innovation. There's been creating like internet, the adoption to 100 million users at the internet was significantly less time than it took to reach 100 million users with TV, which was significantly less time than there was with 100 million users of radio. And it's all, the march of progress cannot be deterred, right? So I think it's something, the nature of the conference that you guys are putting on, calling Embracing AI, it's one of those things that we don't really have a choice to do. It's going to progress whether or not folks do embrace it. So I highly encourage that we figure out a way to embrace it. Yeah, in terms of how it's going to benefit society, and or in particular young people, I think what's going to be kind of interesting. I was just reading. There's a Wall Street Journal article even today that just came out talking about there's $200,000 salaried jobs for prompt engineering, right? So folks that are writing prompts to generative AI tools to get the kind of output that a firm might be looking for, and the reality is it's just another tool. So, someone might have been creating an Excel report around, some kind of accounting numbers. I think accounting is gonna be one of the biggest spaces that it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens because it's so heuristic based. It's very similar to medical professions. That it's really gonna allow folks to do significantly more accounts in their accounting profession. So I think as young folks like yourselves that are going through college and graduating college, it's going to allow you to have a much higher output in terms of work time, work per unit of time, provided you do embrace it. So I think that's important to think about, how it is something that you can use to your benefit.
And like, what are the potential drawbacks and harms that generative AI can do to us?
Yeah. So I guess kind of alluding to my earlier point around, time for adoption, right? So, um, as we had the Industrial Revolution, right? And there were folks that were out there spinning yarn and weaving, and that was a really big industry in the UK. And as we invented machines to automate, the textile industry, all those workers, ultimately, those workers, there are far fewer workers in the textile industry today than there were back then. But they had time to essentially, find a different profession. And so one thing I think is to be of concern or something for society to keep aware of is, there's a very large potential for a significant displacement of jobs. And we're going to want to be retraining folks for how to adopt the new tools, or find the different professions that are out there, because you are potentially looking at something where now displacing all trucking in the United States is not going to be something that's done by generative AI, but it's going to be done by an AI system with autonomous vehicles, right? And so the day that software system is deemed proficient, you're looking at 10 million truckers potentially out of their jobs. So I think that's something that as a society we need to be thinking about. Where are the likely displacements, and what can we do as a group to help these folks in these different industries find different professions, because there's always going to be a growth of jobs. I don't ever believe that there's going to be a time where no one's working, and there's nothing to do, but we just need to find a pathway for folks to continue to grow.
Right. I think you touched on this, but feel free to add more. So you said about that people have no choice but to embrace AI. So what are the consequences that may arise if people choose to neglect and not embrace AI?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of like game theory, right? Like, so Microsoft and Google and a bunch of the other big AI companies, they actually have an agreement that went back, I think back to the early 2010s, where they said, if any one of us takes over 50% of the worldwide GDP, right? That's all of the money that's, 50% of all the money that's made in the world, we will disperse it to everyone across the world. And so the idea was there, we shouldn't be racing against one another to create the quickest AI system, because that might not be the safest, right? The AI system might not be aligned with our values. But the reality is, like, we can't as a society say we're not going to progress forth with our AI research because another institution might do so, and they might not have quite benevolent viewpoints on how to use the system. And so for folks that are let's assume that AI is going to progress. I think we all, at least on this call, seem like we share that belief. If let's say Thatcher and myself choose to use generative AI in producing our summary reports for the quarter, and Jay, you don't, well, suddenly like Thatcher and I might be doing 3 times more reports than you are, right? And so I think The challenge is going to be not that like you're not going to be, I don't think you're going to be necessarily be put out of a job, but you're certainly going to have less work to do. It's gonna be harder for you to compete in the industry. And so I think that's the biggest concern for folks that aren't embracing the technologies as they come forward.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. I think we definitely need to be prepared for that. So, you talked a little bit about what you were doing with OurGov. So, do you want to go in a bit more and talk about how you have integrated AI into your personal life and your career with OurGov?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, so in terms of what we're doing with AI today in OurGov, so we've really been Jay, you were kind of mentioning how have things changed, and we spent a lot of time manually categorizing bills. So when bill text comes through, we'll actually go through and read the text of a bill. So here, here's the text of Assembly Bill 64 here. And we would read through it and manually tag it. And then what we started to do is we started building language processing algorithms that we would go through and try to suggest tags. Now what we're doing is we're actually using generative AI to read through the text of a bill, suggest categories, and then we'll actually approve them. But we also send various parts of government testimonies. So what we're looking at here, this is a testimony about AB 64 and AB 131 within the Department of Agriculture, or the Committee of Agriculture in the state of Wisconsin. And so what we actually do is we actually look at the testimony and the text and statements that were made by individual lobbyists or trade representatives, trade association representatives, and we summarize that. So when you look at this text, this testimony is hundreds of pages of long, but someone can actually distill down the information of what Matt Kruger's perspective is, and then we even use generative AI to do our classification modeling too, that we previously would have done through models that we developed ourselves. So earlier we were talking about how democratizing OpenAI's APIs have been. Well, historically you might need your own data scientists. They're probably one of the most expensive engineers that you can hire to look through data and figure out how to model through categorization algorithms. And now we can really just send it through APIs with the right prompts. So a little bit of that prompt engineering profession that's starting to be, you're starting to see job opportunities for. We're doing that here as well. We haven't done anything with chatbots yet. We're right now kind of controlling the interface, but there's lots of opportunity there as well as we start to develop like the ability for our users to create custom agendas when they bring in all of their clients to the state capitol. Yeah, so this is kind of just an example where you can see some of that generative AI as it gets produced in real time.
For our final questions, so for our project, Professor Moman, like your previous professor, she said that we need to think of a use case for AI besides just a chatbot or summarizing content. So what are some other applications of generative AI or a large language model can achieve beyond what we have seen so far?
Yeah, so I think there's tons and tons of opportunities. So I actually sent you guys one that a friend of mine are proposing to a large grocery chain here. I think I sent you guys a video a while back, but basically, one example would be you've got an app on your phone, right? And you want to build your grocery list. So you want to make a meal plan for the week. And so you might tell it a certain set of preferences where, hey, I've got I like Mediterranean food. They might know that I'm a 25-year-old, I'm a 21-year-old college student, so I have tons of money. But I want to get like ideally like a certain amount of my diet from Mediterranean style food, and then maybe I like some peanut butter as well. And so what a generative AI bot can do is actually create a table that says, here's a rough meal plan for you for this week. Here's the groceries, you can pick them up. Here are the aisles that they're in, and really pulling from what they've been starting to do with OpenAI is they create what are called plugins for OpenAI's language models to actually request data from external third-party sources. So you might ask it a math problem. It says, "Hey, I know it's a math problem. I'm gonna request a calculator plugin to do the actual operation." So same thing you can do with this tool like that, where you create essentially an application that's develops a meal plan for you, or like a travel itinerary is another good example. Where you say, "I want to go to Belarus," and it knows what content's in Belarus based off of some of the language statistical modeling that's been doing, and then suggests different events based off of what you described to it. I think the possibilities are quite endless. And kind of going back to my other remarks earlier too, folks are starting to. I don't think it's the best tool, but folks are starting to use generative AI models for problems like classification, where previously they would have spent tons of time developing those.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's just so many ways that these large language models can be used. So, thank you so much for coming to talk to us, Taylor, and spending your time, just having this conversation with us. We certainly hope to talk to you sometime in the near future and just keep learning about generative AI.
Yeah, definitely. I hope to see you guys next time down on campus.